Greetings. Okay, picking up where we left off in the immediately preceding video, in this personal evolution training case number 1 sequence here, we ended with the question being asked. I have moved beyond my religious dogma. Now what about my remaining existential angst, or my consequent existential angst? Answer. There stands a connection among your religious upbringing and your current feelings surrounding "what's the point" thoughts. You have summed up the connection with your having said, "After removing the false images of God from my mind, there is nothing left, a kind of emptiness." Another way to state this emptiness is angst with respect to my existence. Existential angst. Well, this is one of the numerous normal consequences to having intellectually worked through and subsequently having discarded belief in false religious dogma. And you notice also that even though your more correct beliefs regarding who and what you are in the cosmos does not heal the angst. One reason for that is that belief or intellectual understanding alone is not enough. A similar angst happened to the mane of humanity a couple of hundred years ago. Happened due to the Copernican revolution. And we are only now beginning to pull out of that as a whole. Out of that angst. And your personal experience here that you have asked about and pointed out is analogous to what happened with respect to the Copernican revolution, to what happened at a greater social scope, or a bigger level, a wider scope level. Very similar. So let me talk about that, the analogy here. In short, before the revolution, mankind believed life had a purpose in connection with mankind being the center of God's attention and will. That's a fact. Mankind didn't believe that. And this belief ran hand in hand with the belief that man's home in the universe was the center around which creation revolved. So, the statement, "all things revolve around man," was held to be true with respect to purpose, as well as with respect to astronomy. The two ideas about centrality were interconnected. One idea was called homocentrism, and the other was called geocentrism. Homocentrism being referring to man is the purposeful center around which all things revolve meaningfully. Or, well, humanity was the center of God's focus. Geocentrism refers to Earth being the center astrologically and astronomically around which all other heavenly bodies revolve. And those two ideas, ran hand in hand with one another. But when geocentrism in the Copernican revolution gave way to heliocentrism, or the sun as the point around which Earth revolves, and then explanations for that all suddenly got boiled down to mathematics within a short time. Guess what happened to homocentrism? Well, it fell away, leaving a void with respect to the importance and purpose of human life, leaving a social void, a deep philosophical void. Now, does this sound familiar to your own personal experience that you're talking about here? It does to me. And as I said, replacing the old belief system with another one, whatever the other one is, might be of some comfort for a while at best. But that comfort wears off. Why? Well, as soon as we realize that the problem lies in a belief in the first place, then simple belief itself loses some credibility. So replacing the old one with another one just doesn't quite have a thorough and lasting effect anymore. Simply because it's just the replacement of belief with another. So what is required by the soul is actual knowledge through personal experience of something relevant that is grounded in things as they truly are. This is the way through that resulting existential angst. What is required by the soul is actual knowledge through personal experience of something relevant that is grounded in things as they truly are. This serves many purposes, including giving our attention something to focus on other than the feeling of void and thoughts of uselessness. You know, at least that. Well, and this meeting this requirement by the soul is something that I can help you with. And one slight aside interjected here. These false dogmas to which you referred were contrived, by the way, contrived with the knowledge that people would either stick with the dogmas or feel empty. Kind of a false dilemma. Neither option being very good. Much easier to just stick with the dogmas. A contrivance. And the knowledge of who and what we really are has been kept hidden. Is the dogmas or feel empty? Now see, a third option would have been knowledge of what and who we really are. But that's been kept hidden all the while. And even for most who figure out anything related to what and who we really are, knowledge of how to have knowledge of it through direct experience has been kept a mystery. And here arises an important thing with which to come to terms. The human race on this planet has been a slave species for a long time. We have been genetically modified toward this end, and our consciousness has been hijacked toward this end, both for quite a long time. Part of this hijacking involves false religious dogma, and keeping hidden from us who and what we really are. And when I say keeping hidden from us, I mean intellectually as well as directly experientially. And it is that direct experience that is the most important. For through it, we become free. Free in more ways than one. As you can imagine, given what I have said here. In the least, as long as we are lost one way or another, we are vulnerable to misleading. So if we take away the false dogma, what else is there but void? The true self. The core of our being, which does not change and which is rooted in the one and only absolute. It is right here, right now, always has been, always will be. The true self. Growth in direct realization of this and expansion of that centeredness into individualized cosmic awareness is our ultimate personal purpose for being here or for being anywhere. Please, at this point, watch and closely mentally attend to my video called The Absolute, which is from William Walker Atkinson's The Arcane Teachings. Next question. Alright, I have closely viewed and mentally reviewed your video on the Absolute. What now? Answer. Well, rather than to watch it yet again and take notes, which you might be prone to do, I suggest that you have already, if you viewed it and mentally reviewed it, you have by now already deeply reviewed it in your mind at least 3 times. First time being when you watched the video the first time. Well, and especially given your interest in the subject, I would say that this then has already created a subconscious impression. Therefore, I think it wisest to consider that you have given it its due attention for now. So give it no more. No strain. I only wanted to give you something to consider. For now. And you've done that. So now you can move on. Here's how. Trust in your understanding of it at this point. And consider that further analysis of it at this point will probably boil down to too much left brain activity over it, which really could lead away from your intuitive understanding of it. Instead, however slightly or greatly you can do this, feel within you the part of you that does not change. The essence of your being. The part of you that does not change. This can be difficult to do. Quite difficult to do. So don't strain over it at all. Just easily try it for a moment. And bear in mind that this is the part of you that roots in the absolute. Some understanding of which, intuitive understanding of which you now have reliably. Once you have felt this part of you even a little bit, and have borne this connection with the absolute in mind even a little bit, well, just move on to something else. That's all I'm asking you to do. No strain. There's nothing critical about this right now. I only mean to give you some little starting point. This is all part of, an answer to your existential angst. Having given up and moved past, or just at least given up, but wondering how to now move past, you are having given up a religious dogma, finding that what was left there then was existential angst. I'm still addressing that. Just giving you something to do, some little starting point, just a little something solid, that's all. Just a little taste of truth about what you are. To start to fill in the void with what is real. With an occult understanding of your true self and its relationship with its immutable source. For this is the essential thing that there is to do. I know the task is difficult. I don't expect you to have a lot of success with it at the moment. I just want you to try. In order to actively link a minute awareness of your true self with your recent consideration of the absolute, which for now has got you from you its due attention. Your subconscious mind will sort out the connection a bit for you. Later on, some flashes of intuition will come from what you have now done. Now, some key concepts for us here right now are, number one, feeling, and number two, subconscious mind. I have mentioned both of them just within the last few moments. Do you notice that left brain philosophizing could quickly get in the way of both feeling here and of letting the subconscious mind handle things? I want you to feel. And to let your subconscious mind have a chance to sort these things out a bit. For these are important. The feeling and the subconscious functioning. These are important. These are important. Next question. Can you say something about attention? Well, yeah. Good time to ask. Attention constitutes a fundamental mental function. A fundamental mental function in all of your performance, selfhood, and self-mastery work. In all of your personal evolution work. So here I might as well introduce you to one of my simple takes on attention. So simple, in fact, that many people, upon hearing it, overlook it and its significance. And even any application of it into their methods of action. Do not make that mistake. So here I might as well introduce to you one of my simple takes on attention, one that I strongly recommend that you consider practicing. And when I say practicing, I mean it as something to practice, such that through practice you will increasingly get the hang of doing it, and such that you will also work it into a habit through your repeated application. It's as follows. Two key terms here are, one, due attention, D-U-E, and two, undue attention. Due attention is attention that is due. Let's say that something, whether it is an emotion, an action, a decision, an event, or whatever, requires your attention. That is, it requires your mental focus. Now, that requirement is due attention. As long as it remains due, it will be waiting for its due. Oh, you can bet on that. Now let's say that you have given it its due attention. Well, from that point onward, any further attention to it is what? Undue attention. Undue attention is a waste of mental energy and of time. It can lead to distress, drainage, strain, tiredness, sleeplessness, anxiety, depression, anger, decreased attention control, decreased use of volition, and some other ill effects. Now, what can often happen with this due attention, undue attention thing is that we do not give something its due attention. But instead, we give it little bits of half-assed notice over and over for a long time. But we do not really just give the thing its real due at any time. Or then what can happen is that if and when we have actually given a thing its true due attention, well then, what do we do then? We continue giving it attention over and over anyway. So, the trick in not having either one of these things happen is to give a thing its bona fide due attention and then don't give it anymore. And how do we give it no more? Well, by going on to give other things their due attention. All sounds so simple. Too simple to pay much attention to? If so, in your opinion, then perhaps consider that maybe that whole notion still requires your attention. If you don't give it its due attention, and you find that sometime during your life you have some ill effects occurring, mentally at least, over giving something way too much attention over and over and over and over and over and over. Or something nagging you that you're not really giving its due attention. And you remember me having pointed this out right now. Well then, perhaps in retrospect you will remember that you decided not to give it its due attention. Then maybe give it its due attention right now. Then it'll be done. Okay. Now, right now, consider this with respect to the thoughts and emotions that comprise your existential angst and accompanying, yes, depression. Perhaps some of these thoughts and emotions have not ever really got their due bona fide mental focus. Perhaps, huh? And that's why they're just hanging in there, still waiting. And then perhaps some others have already got it, but they're still getting more attention. The results of either one of these cases can be very similar to one another. And if both are going on, well, then we have a perpetuating circumstance. Self-perpetuating circumstance involving thoughts and emotions that comprise your existential angst. Now, those parts of it that haven't yet got their due attention, well, they are waiting for it, like I said. And those that have, but are still getting their attention, have no further requirement on your attention. But they're still getting it. So I think that this immediately preceding here about due attention and undue attention also is a good place for us to start with respect to your existential angst. A good way to think about it and what's gone into it. This added to your consideration of your true self in connection with your trustworthy, however little, understanding that you just arrived at concerning the absolute. in which your true self is rooted. I think this is a good combination to get started here. Just something to think about. Just to answer your question, to address your question about existential angst. So if you have questions or discussion over this or over any other thing even remotely relevant to it, please attend to doing what it takes to email me at your first possible chance to do so. And this little bit about attention lies at the center of your tools for all personal development. And we will discuss more aspects of it in the time to come. All pragmatic, too. Next question. Can you tell me a bit more about subconscious involvement? Yes, indeed. Subconscious involvement. We will talk much more about it further down the road, but consider just for another moment here this subconscious mind talk. Please realize that we can get your subconscious, that we can get our subconscious functions to do a lot of work for us. Excuse me. You've no doubt heard much about such affairs. For now, I guess just consider what you've already done in this direction. There's something here making a lot. Oh. Everything skipped way up a beat here. Just a moment, please. I moved something and some scrolling took place all by its weird little self. Here we go. Excuse me. Please realize that we can get our subconscious functions to do a lot of work for us. You've no doubt heard much about such affairs, but for now, I guess just consider what you've already done in this direction. You have incorporated some repetition of thought. Remember that? I mean, over, for example, the video about the absolute. You have incorporated some repetition of thought, such as over the absolute, and now at least an attempt at feeling something with respect to your true self. Okay? Such as the part of you that does not change, your true self. Well, repetition and deep feeling conjoined are two ways to get your subconscious mind involved. Trust in your subconscious mind to work for you. Well, that's another key factor. So now I ask you just to trust your subconscious mind to do a little work for you in the way of fitting your recent perusal of information about the absolute into your overall knowledge base. And to also connect into that base the facts that the unchanging core of your being does exist and that it roots in the one absolute. This means that for now, you do not have to put any further conscious effort into these things. Trust your subconscious mind to work on them for you. Probably some result of this will pop into your awareness around the time we take further action or have further discussion along these lines. And we will. Probably it will show up in the form of either a relevant feeling experience, right around one of those times, or an easier understanding of the relevant ideas being discussed at that time, or some new relevant realization seemingly coming out of the blue, or some combination of those. All of which will at least in part result from you having trusted your subconscious mind to do this work for you. But like I said, we will also delve more deeply into how to enlist your subconscious mind's help. You see, all that we're doing right now is skimming over some rudimentary things. Some basic ideas, and some essential facts of the matter. That's all. And we'll talk more about them many more times, okay? So don't worry in the least. No strain, no worry. If you feel like at this point, this is a lot to absorb, gotta go back over it, knock it off. Just do what I'm saying to do here, and it's going to work for you. This is just a starter. There's much more to come. No worries. But let me give you just one more little thing that you can do right now that can help to bring to your awareness a sense of your true self. Just one more little thing. Stand or sit before a mirror about 2 feet away. Keep your posture rather straight. And if you are sitting, keep your feet flat on the floor. Position your jawline such that you are giving your physical reflection a square look in the eye. Then, without strain, but maintaining an easy gaze, kind of like the one I'm giving you right now, by the way, mentally as well as verbally, repeat your own name over and over for a generous duration of time. That's it. Next question. Okay. Changing directions here a little bit. Something that has personally concerned me. Another question I have for you now is, what about academic philosophy? Is that something to pursue on my own that is like what we're talking about here? Will I find this there? What about academic philosophy? And by the way, while I'm asking that, what is epistemology? Can you explain epistemology a little bit? Like clarify that for me, because I'm a little confused about that. And it seems like if academic philosophy is like what you're discussing with me here, maybe epistemology is one of the branches of academic philosophy that is most closely related to what I'm asking about. Answer. Academic philosophy is perhaps the only academic field the pursuit of which is not purely consciousness hijacking. As in, here's what to think. As in, completely left brain paradigm indoctrination. Let me combine those 3 ideas about it here together. Let's say that we want to describe an academic field of pursuit as purely consciousness hijacking. Here's what to think, left brain paradigm indoctrination. Well, perhaps academic philosophy is the only academic field of pursuit that is not that. Well, at least it's not purely a matter of here's what to think thrown at you and nothing else. Because it also involves a lot of here's how to think. The other academic fields of pursuit don't have that. Not as an object of investigation in itself. Of course, there's some how to think involved with other academic fields of pursuit. But only insofar as what is required in order to power feed you what to think. It's all what to think that's going on. Alright. When I was at the University of California at Berkeley getting my degree in philosophy, I got rather sick of it rather quickly. It was far more left brain than I had anticipated, even with the how to think going on. Until I got the hang of it, I did a lot of things to distract me from my disdain. The following story tells of one such distracting activity in which I engaged. I had a professor who had spent some time at Princeton, and from whom I took for philosophical logic, as well as for philosophy of language. Excuse me. Excuse me. Now, one thing he taught us in philosophical logic was how to generate formal languages. Well, one of the many books that we studied in that course was his own book called Descriptions. And the main focus of Descriptions was the word the. The word the. That's right. And, yes, you guessed it, whether the word the functions to describe or to name. Well, I felt disdain over such things, you see. And I amused myself during that semester by writing a detailed double entendre about the ancient Athenians' social practices of sodomizing male youth while introducing them to philosophy. I used words like analysis, and fallacies, analysis and fallacies. I used these words in this little thing I wrote. I used them humorously, in my opinion. And I said that this whole thing they were doing, having to do with analyses and fallacies, well, it boiled down to a philosophotomical confusion. That's right. Insofar as the men thought that they were pumping wisdom into the young boys' brains via their intestines. Whereas in reality it wasn't wisdom, but rather it was jisdom, or just jism, a mistake that was just dumb. I saw this professor in a coffee shop, and I happened to have my little written tale with me, on hand. So I got it out and I shared it with him. And when I had finished, he looked at me oddly, and then left the coffee shop. I guess he wasn't amused. Well, after that day, he seemed to have a little trouble looking at me in class. Nonetheless, I did well in his courses. So, academic philosophy. I would say that in large, it doesn't really get at this kind of thing we're talking about here at all. Now, you asked for a description of epistemology. Here in my own words. Excuse me. In my own words, epistemology is the branch of philosophy involved with, or also known as, knowledge theory. Its object of investigation is knowledge. Whereas metaphysics seeks to answer the question, what is the nature of reality? And ethics seeks to answer the question, what is the nature of right action? Epistemology seeks to answer the question, what is the nature and the scope of knowledge? Relevant epistemological questions are, what are the necessary and sufficient conditions for knowledge? How can we know that we know? And can we know what knowledge is? And what constitutes justified belief? To demonstrate epistemology in action, a typical epistemological analysis looks like the following. Are you ready? Quote, John knows P, proposition P, end quote, is true if and only if 1, 2, 3, ... 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. Okay. Where if and only if means if X then Y, and if Y then X, and such that in that above statement, that just mentioned statement, John knows P is true if and only if blah, blah, blah. Such that in the above, X corresponds with or equals John knows P is true, and Y equals the 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 blah. Now, the P in there, proposition P, might be something about the external world, or about John, or about the content of some other person's mind, and so forth. And the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, however far it goes, are conditions to be identified that would make the entire proposition John knows P is true if and only if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 makes that entire thing obtain. Did you get that? Epistemology gets mind-warpingly complicated very quickly, and is hardcore left-brain stuff. Now, to help delineate epistemology from another branch of philosophy, here is an example of a famous epistemological statement that has often been misconstrued as being a metaphysical one. René Descartes, cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am. While some people think that he means I exist because I think, which would be a metaphysical proposition, or is a metaphysical proposition. Yes, it is. I exist because I think. That is a metaphysical proposition. René Descartes does not mean that. He means I know that I exist because I am thinking. That is an epistemological proposition. That is the one he was making. With I think, therefore I am. He means I know that I exist because I am thinking. No matter how we might twist things around, his proposition has to do with what he knows, rather than with what is. That makes it an epistemological proposition, not a metaphysical one. So that may help us to understand what epistemology is. Having said that, depending upon context, the adjective epistemic may be substituted for the adjective epistemological. Now, from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, defined narrowly, epistemology is the study of knowledge and justified belief. As the study of knowledge, epistemology is concerned with the following questions. What are the necessary and sufficient conditions of knowledge? What are its sources? What is its structure and what are its limits? As the study of justified belief, epistemology aims to answer questions such as, how are we to understand the concept of justification? What makes justified beliefs justified? Is justification internal or external to one's own mind? Understood more broadly, epistemology is about issues having to do with the creation and dissemination of knowledge in particular areas of inquiry. And finally, from Wikipedia, epistemology, the word, comes from the Greek word episteme, meaning knowledge, understanding. And it comes also from the word logos, meaning the study of. So, study of knowledge and understanding. Is a term first used by the Scottish philosopher James Frederick Ferrier, or Ferrier. Whatever the Scottish pronunciation of it is, I'm not sure. I forget. But it's not Ferrier, that's French. Sorry. To describe the branch of philosophy concerned with the nature and scope of knowledge, and is also referred to as theory of knowledge. Put concisely, it is the study of knowledge and justified belief. It questions what knowledge is and how it can be acquired, and the extent to which knowledge pertinent to any given subject or entity can be acquired. Much of the debate in this field has focused on the philosophical analysis of the nature of knowledge and how it relates to connected notions such as truth, belief, and justification. Now, I suspect that you asked me these questions about academic philosophy and epistemology because you wanted to determine whether academic philosophy has anything to do with self-mastery, as you suggested. Whether it has anything to do with personal evolvement, as you implied, and with true selfhood, as we deal with them here. Well, as you might by now be able to determine, it doesn't. Or, well, not much to do with it. And if it does to any extent, it would largely lie in an esoteric understanding of the ancient Greeks, or in the more modern approach to philosophy called pragmatism, such as presented by William James. But pragmatism is not a popular approach in academic circles today. Other than that, you would have to turn to Oriental philosophy, particularly that of South Asia or India. But even then, the academic study of such philosophy usually robs it of its true capacity to instrument one's actual personal development. And finally here, I repeat what I said at the outset. Academic philosophy teaches you how to think more than does any other academic field, all the rest of this notwithstanding. Appropriate application of this attribute serves instrumentally in the direction of self-mastery. It will serve instrumentally in that direction. Next question. Okay. What about obstacles in life? What about life obstacles? Can you say anything about that? An example would be a criminal record. Answer. Okay. Let's take up with the criminal record idea as an example. Your example. Before you had the record, you had a starting point to go into anything, from which to proceed into anything. In life endeavor, you had a starting point. That did not involve a criminal record. Okay. There were limitations, though, at that time in your life, whenever, those times, that pre-criminal record starting point, state of affairs, from which you were to launch into any new direction. There were limitations. They existed. And looking back, now you see opportunity back, having to do with back then, that is perhaps now not there, now that you have the criminal record. Although limitations did exist then too. You look back and you're seeing opportunity that you had then that you no longer have. Because your starting point is different. See, now you just have a new starting point. It has its opportunities. just like your old starting point had. Not necessarily all the same ones. Now let me change tracks a little bit here, but still addressing the same issue. Some people say, I'm bored. I'm really bored. I'm just so bored. Are you bored? I'm bored. I'm bored. Oh my God, this is so boring. A good response to that is, oh really? I thought that what whenever you're referring to this feeling is that that feeling was really like inner peace. I mean, you know, a misinterpretation of the situation. The misinterpretation of the situation being that is boredom. Misinterpretation. Such that locked right into the boredom, or this interpretation that results in this idea of boredom, locked right into that interpretation of the state of affairs, or of the situation, is the other interpretation. Peace. Peace at last. Such that locked right into the boredom interpretation is the peace interpretation. Or such that locked right into the boring situation is a situation of peacefulness. Locked right in. It's right there. Yet another way to say this is that the situation being interpreted as boring has peace built right into it. Similarly, okay, each apparent obstacle has locked right into it a new take on opportunity, a new take on opportunity. Many so-called problems have solutions built right into them. Just like built right into the boredom situation was a peace situation. Built right in. It was right there. Just a matter of the interpretation of the situation. Each apparent obstacle has locked right into it a new take on opportunity. Many so-called problems have solutions built right in. For example, some people say, I have too much distraction and I can't focus. So I say, what's the problem? Not really seeing the problem. Because you're in a perfect situation, and what you're telling me right now tells me that you are in a perfect situation for practicing attention control. Perfect situation. Because you didn't just now identify a problem to me. You identified an opportunity that's built right into your situation to which you refer. That situation is the opportunity to practice attention control. And you're telling me there's a problem. And that the problem is that you have too much distraction and you can't focus. And I say, oh, in other words, a perfect opportunity to practice attention control. See? It was actually an opportunity, not an obstacle. But the interpretation of the obstacle has locked right into it the nature of the opportunity. This happens a lot when it comes to perceived obstacles in life. I'm not here in suggesting that you now put energy into trying to figure out some opportunity inherent in your criminal record. No. The criminal record was just the example you provided. I'm putting out a general principle. I'm putting something out, a useful point of view in general that is, that happened to come to my mind when you mentioned your record and its limiting factor for you. And again, this does not say that you have all the same opportunities that you had before the criminal record. Understand me there? No. Excuse me. What it says is that you now have a different starting point than you did before. And there were opportunities then, there are opportunities now, and perceiving the obstacle, seeing an obstacle, is a place to look for an interpretation that involves opportunity. Okay? Next question. Now, what can you tell me about the effects of stimulant or narcotic abuse with respect to this personal involvement training? Answer is, I want to know whether you know about your energy or ethereal body and about your astral body. For not only do such chemicals damage your CNS, that is your central nervous system, that includes your brain, but also damage your ethereal body and your astral body. In the least, these chemicals have ethereal and astral effects, largely because they too, just like you, have ethereal and astral components. I point this out only to help you become aware of the facts of the case. For the damage is such that it gets in the way of the source of progress towards which you strive. Well, many things get in the way. Chemicals in our drinking water, such as sodium fluoride, get in the way. TV, television gets in the way. Microwaves get in the way. Chemtrail fallout gets in the way. Most contemporary music gets in the way. Oh, on and on the list goes. And when I say get in the way, I'm stating that very lightly. It's a good idea to avoid volitionally adding to the list in our lives. The notion that, well, we're all going to go somehow. Or, well, what's just one more thing? Or, what are you going to do about it? Is no excuse to volitionally add to the list. Are no excuse to volitionally add to the list. Next question, what if I am detoxing from drugs while I decide on your program? Answer, well then in addition to other preparation material that I'm giving you, or will give you, to help you decide whether you are best adapted right now for my full-blown comprehensive program, I also recommend drinking only steam distilled water during this time. Excuse me, up to a gallon a day. It's less than $1 a gallon in most stores. You can find it in the water section. If you do that, please be apprised that if you feel a little woozy from it at first, or you come up with any zits or what have you, these are the results of your body cleansing itself because of drinking the distilled water. You see, the thing about distilled water is this. It is pure H2O. Therefore, it easily latches on to impurities. That's one of the things it likes to do. This includes unusable minerals, unusable to you, that you get from such things as other water. And it cleans them out of your body. All of nature lives on distilled water. Evaporation and condensation, two processes that I'm sure you've heard of before with respect to nature's workings, equal distilled water. But once it has run over rocks and so on, it picks up minerals. Just like it will do in your body if you ingest pure H2O. These minerals, however, are not usable by your body. So they just build up and clog everything, causing stones and deposits and so on. That's what they came from when the water picked them up in the first place and then brought them into your body. But usable minerals to us, to our flesh, come from vegetables and fruits. And those usable minerals go into our cells, from where pure water, pure H2O, does not take them. It leaves them there. It would be a shame if you cannot get distilled water, but if distilled water is unavailable to you, not to worry. And also, whether or not you have distilled water, be apprised that all water is programmable. I will stick my neck out to say that distilled water is more easily programmable than other water, but all water is programmable. Mentally programmable. Okay? So even if you don't have distilled water, you can still put it in a container and write the word love on the container and mean it when you write it there. And then let that container sit for 24 hours with the water in it before you drink it. Excuse me. Got a little something going on here. I have a hangnail. I just hate it whenever I chip a nail, too. Whenever I chip and dale. Excuse me. Water that is in a container with love written on it molecularly behaves differently than does other water. The molecules line up almost like molecules in a crystal and move about very calmly, more calmly than otherwise. So even if you cannot get distilled water, still do this with the water that you do have. Write the word love on each container and mean it. Now, this is all, everything said here, in answer to your questions, is real stuff. None of it is idle fancy. Nor is it left brain analysis. It is the start of experience with the real thing. Next question. What about rituals to aid my personal desires right now? Answer. I think I understand your question. Not certain, but I think I do. Let me take a stab at it. I recently heard it advised to make a jar with representations of your desires inside it. And then to burn candles on it. And finally to bury it. Sounds pretty cool. And if this is the sort of thing that you mean, well then, I say that it's not required. Especially if you know how to use your own mind without such props. And using your own mind without such props is what we're after. Mentally seeing your plans clearly in mind, with fixed attention, while deeply feeling their meaning to you. And doing all of this repeatedly will do more than the burning of the candles and so on. Your subconscious functions, for example, will be invoked more directly. Now notice that I'm implying that they will be invoked with the candle burning, but this will do it more directly. Besides, while it is a self-mastery oriented thing to do, this development of habits along the lines of mental imaging and fixed attention, I would not recommend substituting for such habits a different set of habits along the lines of candle burning, just to instrument realization of desires. Candle burning for soft light, while engaging in a moment of fixed attention to clear mental images of what you are after in your life, would be candle power put to better use. As you work out whether you feel suited for my program, I look forward to any questions that arise. Otherwise, be in touch 21 days from now that we have the foundation for a relationship devoted to your self-managed personal evolution and evolvement. We will go from there. Be well. Now that is the end of the dialogue. This is me to you here in this video. That concludes the dialogue shared with the individual who is the client, or the prospective personal evolution training client here in this personal evolution case. I will continue this case in the next video. This transcript in the next video. And I will give you a heads up of what will be coming there. The dialogue arriving to me by email from that person starts as follows. I can already tell, as far as this information goes, that this is exactly what I want to learn. I'm very eager to implement the practices. While I have researched a lot of different things, I've seldom put them into practice. However you decide to go about it, I am eager to begin. And the 3 questions posed in the beginning, I will give some serious thought, so when the time comes, I can answer them wholeheartedly. We'll pick up with this thread in the next video. See you there.